Right. So like when it comes to like reading his Bible and them kind of thing is every day, periods of the day in the evening, you find he had that time to read his Bible, spiritual books that he was into at the time. So he will always make time for that, for his devotion. He make time to practice his music. There was a time when he would sit down and just be playing the songs that he would sing for church. Like on a day when we have church and he would be leading song, he would sit down and play each song that he gonna sing that day and the key that he was gonna sing it in, and he'll write it on a little piece of paper. So when he go to church, he ain't have to be now flipping to find the song where he feel he no, he have everything in a order. So as one song done, he just flow into the next song because he already have it there. So he will tell the congregation like if he's starting with song number 45 in the melodies of praise, he started singing. And when that done, he say, well, next song is song number 35 in the melodies of praise. Or he have everything on a piece of paper. He sit down, he practice, sing it, work key, and everything just flow. At times when he home, he would just sit down, have us around him, playing his guitar, and we singing, and that was like birthed in us. That music that house was always full of music. Always, if it's he not singing, it's some song playing, some he have on some record, something. Well, those days you know he was more into spiritual music, so it was like he would have like Charlie Pride playing, Dirty Rambo. He had loved Dirty Rambo, and those Rambo, and then he would have like that. So we grow up always hearing music, or sometimes he would sit down and sing, and he would record himself singing, and then we would like play that back in the house. So the house was always full of music, always full of music. So that was one of the pillars of our home. It was always filled with music.
So, as much as you remember, you will describe home with them was plenty reading and plenty music.
Plenty music, plenty reading, plenty music.
What kind of response he would get from his spouse? Like,
Well,
what was her reaction to his personality like that?
well, mommy had liked music as well.
Okay.
She was also a music lover, and she was also a person that was deep devotion in her scripture as well.
So they complemented
So
each
they
other at that
complemented
in
each
that
other
period.
with that.
She's a supportive.
Yes, fully support
You
his
think
spiritual life.
he had any regrets or any missing or any thoughts of going back into Calypso, maybe for financial reasons or for egotistical reason or anything? It
Well,
ever came up?
at that time when he was into the church, I could have never see it that he would have ever lived to go back into Calypso,
Serious? Why you say that?
because he
He was
was
so
so cemented and happy and grounded in what he was in. So seeing him going back to the Calypso world was something that I could have never fathomed.
his structure, which is the way he used to organize the music. Was it by request or he himself brought that into that
He
environment?
himself brought that into the environment. He
Okay.
brought that because, well, like the last church where we were in, that was the longest church we stayed in. That is the last one that he went to before he returned to the Calypso world. When he went there, the church was very like more like disorganized, and he brought structure to in like he brought his he always had his amplifier for his guitar, and he used that amplifier and put a mic on it so that the when the preacher preach, he when he tell the preacher you can't use your voice alone to throw to the whole congregation, you're gonna mash up your voice. So he introduced him to using a mic, to help through his voice.
So would you describe that as he helped develop the musical
Develop, yes, yes,
environment
at
in the
the
church?
physical environment. And then the church really didn't have no instrument. The must just had a tambourine also.
So he
And so
brought
he
that.
was the first one that brought in to, his guitar to accompany the music. Until after that, well, then they end up getting more guitarists, and then they end up getting pianos and all like
So
that.
the church leaders was open to his
Yes,
suggestions and
yes,
all of that.
yes, it was
What about the
open.
recordings in the church?
Well, they used to, they used to do recording, but um, what he did was to show them how to, with the amplifier, which would make the recording more better, so that they will hear more of the preacher,
Okay,
less of the congregation. So you find the recordings used to be clearer,
okay. So he brought that
with he bringing that
technological
structure,
knowledge
yes,
to,
into the
okay.
church.
And church life and home life was balanced.
Yeah, more or less it was balanced, because it wasn't like if he wanted to go to church and his wife didn't want to go to church. It was, they both were into the same thing.
Okay.
So in that we grow up not really knowing anything else really, but
Mm-hmm.
a life of church. So that was more or less what we were into.
What would you say made the decision to make him decide that he want to enter back into the calypso world?
Well, what happened is that he and the pastor of the church had some misunderstanding, and she believed that he was unfairly treated, and having go through so many different churches, I guess he decided to just stay at home. And there is where he entered into this metaphysics.
Okay, he had a period of
He had a period
self
self
reflection and
reflection, and he went into this metaphysics trade thing, and he started to read these books on metaphysics and all that. He was home because he left the church world in 1983. And from then to about 1985, I think, is when he decided, with meeting other Calypsonian, and they talk him into, boy, come back and sing
so other
Calypso
Calypsonians
and
encouraged
yes,
him.
and
You
encourage him
remember
and tell,
who these other
I can't
Calypsonians?
remember exactly who it was, but I know he used to come and tell mommy he meet some Calypsonian, and they just tell him, boy, come back and he say he would go there and sing metaphysics in his calypso, sing conscious calypsos.
That was his intention.
Right, that was his intention to go back. Because at first, the type of calypsos, when he now went back out, and that is when he renamed himself Mystic Prowler.
Okay.
So he would sing like more, more like devotional thing, self-reflecting
Self
songs and all like that.
So he brought that spirituality
See,
into Calypso.
into his calypso.
Okay.
He brought that spiritually back into his calypso. So that is when he leave, and he really re-entered the calypso world.
Okay. How did his wife respond to his decision to go back into Calypso?
Well, at first she wasn't really um, into it, because I mean she was out of that era for such a long time
Mm-hmm.
that it was, that change was a little harder. It harder for, but eventually she she stick with him, and she decided to make the move with him, to support him in his role back into the Calypso world. I remember the first time, he went back in the Calypso world. He went and he was to sing with Sparrow, Young Brigade, at Sparrow Hideaway in Petit Valley. Sometimes we would go to the tent with him. At first, it was like real uncomfortable because
Okay.
you're not
You know, church life.
accustomed to that
So he
kind
brought
of
the
thing.
family to the tent with him.
Yeah, and he was like, you know, we're not accustomed to, but it takes some time for us to, you know, go into that because we really were not accustomed to that kind of.
Before we move on, I wanted to find out the move that he did from church to church. What would you say is the reason for that?
Well,
Was it dissatisfaction or
well, he was. I feel he was searching for a certain height of spirituality that was not present at that time. What happened is that he would, well, like, let me give you an example. Like, he used to, one of the first churches that we used to go to, this pastor was a man from Central, and he would go lead song for and waiting for the pastor to come, and the pastor will never show up. And he would there be singing away and singing and singing, and then the pastor will not, and that happened more than once. Sometimes because of his influence of being in the Calypso world, he would go to small little churches and tell them, well, he want to come and have a little revival meeting, and he would go, he will study song service and thing. We would go, and the pastor will not show up, and that was something that he could not have handled because I mean, your consistency, that to him, that mean that you're not serious. And if anybody know Roy Lewis, you see that, nah, don't do him that. Don't do him that. Do not show up. Best you show up and say you're sick or something. Don't do not show up. Then it had this other church we went to. 1 minute church going this way, next the consistency, the dedication, and he find that they're not taking this life serious. They're not remaining dedicated, and he was so dedicated to his God, and you making joke with his God, and he can handle that. So from the time you start to do things that he find wasn't consistent with his devotion and thing, he just he just done with that.
so moving forward again to the tent experience when he went back into the
Right.
tent, you would say that he was comfortable in his performance, like you seeing him in the church and then seeing him now on the Calypso stage. Do you think that he was comfortable in that space? Or
Well,
where would you say he looked more comfortable?
well, to me, in church, but after a while, you know,
He got back
he
into
get
it, yeah.
back comfortable into the tent, but the transition was kind of
Rocky at first.
rocky, for him. But when he came back to the Calypso, they received him with open arms.
So the response from the audience and
Was very good, and it was like if he never left. Or it was like if they was just waiting, that they just sit down waiting, for him, because his response was like, sometimes you leave something and time you have to fit your way back in and fight your way back in. It was like if he never left,
to
the
this is
response of the
13 years
crowd,
after.
yeah, because of the response of the crowd. But to say with within himself, it take a while for the transition really and probably because of how they accepted him, that it made it
Easier.
a little easier for him to just slip back into that.
Let's talk about his wife and her illness and his response to that.
Well, his wife was diagnosed with cervical cancer in, I think her first diagnosis was in 1980. Her first diagnosis was in 1983.